I call the meeting to order, is there any kind of things, discussion items we take care of, action items?
Yeah, we can probably fit a few
Okay.
things in.
Okay. All right, so I'll call this meeting to order. And before we get started, let's introduce everyone on the meeting. Sandy Brock, when I call your name, please confirm that you can hear me by verifying that you are present. We'll start with the commissioner. Travis.
Present.
Let's see, Emily.
Here.
Let's see, Patrick is here. I don't think Jonathan's online yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Moving on to staff, Leah, our agent,
I'm here.
and Jan.
Present.
And as far as speakers go, what I'm going to do is just kind of go through the list of speakers. If you hear your name, please just acknowledge it so you can make sure that you hear us and we hear you. For Highfield, Byron Andrews.
Present.
Thank you. Jeremy Miller. All right, don't see him on yet, but that's okay. For 8 Hudson Ave, Norm Hill.
Yeah.
Thank you. Allison, well, I hope I say your last name correctly. Cooper. I don't see her listed. And then for 5 Millennium Drive, Bill Lovett.
Here.
Thank you. Phil Cadero.
Here.
Thank you. Matt Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. And Tyler Peer. I got 3 folks for that project anyways. For 1727 Upton Street, Jean Christie.
I'm here.
Thank you. And John Grant. All right. Thanks for responding. Now, let's get into the opening. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order, as most recently extended on March 29, 2023. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. This meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If you are using the dial-in by telephone feature, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals for your queue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After the commissioners have spoken, I will allow public comments to be spoken by participants. Participants must use the raise hand feature by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom right of the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. If you are using the dial in by telephone feature, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute you when you are called upon. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time and will be promoted to speak. Public comments will be followed by commissioner and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside of this purview need to be addressed to the appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the select board, and traffic concerns must be addressed with the planning board. Okay, and I see Jonathan has joined us. So can you hear me, Jonathan?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries, you're here. Thank you very much. All right. So, yeah. Someone has a lot of background noise, and mute yourself when you're not talking. Thank you. So public hearing start at 7:15, but we can take care of some action items. Any place you want to start, Leah?
At the beginning is fine.
Okay. So we have a use authorization request for Pell Farm, and this is by BSA Troop 107. Any details, Leah?
It's their annual camping trip. They go for one night, about 20 people. 2 cars. And we have the stipulation right on the form that they fill out that any campfires have to be extinguished and backfilled after use, but I would just recommend reiterating that along with the vote that you take.
All right, sounds great. I'll do quick, very quickly, if anyone has any issues with this, Jonathan,
No,
any
no issues.
questions?
No, I remember talking about
Um,
this in years past as well. That seems pretty straightforward.
Yep, it's great use of our town-owned property, so. Travis,
Nope, nothing from me.
and Emily.
No questions, thank you.
All right, thanks. Do I have a motion to issue the authorization for the Pell Farm?
I'll move to issue authorization for camping at Pell Farm.
Second.
Second.
All right, and then we can just reiterate in the approval about what they've already seen on the form, which is they have to extinguish all fires and fill in the campfire, I should say. All right, so we have a motion and second, roll call vote. Jonathan, you're up on the screen.
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
I am also a yes. That motion is carried. All right, just go right in order, Leah.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a request to exceed impervious service allowed in water supply protection overlay district at 7 Main Street. Background for this, Leah?
So we got these now and then. If the site is in the water supply protection overlay district, then with consultation with us and engineering, the building inspector can allow them to exceed the 25% impervious allowed on site. So their total proposed impervious does exceed the 25%, but it does decrease the total impervious on site by about 3.5% from the existing conditions. They're proposing rooftop infiltration as well as the 2 catch basins on site are gonna go to a hydrodynamic separator before reaching that same infiltration chamber. Their plans did go before the planning board and were peer reviewed by Graves. And so my recommendation is to provide our approval of the design to the building inspector.
Okay. And that's just our recommendation, right? That's the process we go through.
Correct.
Okay, great. Just quickly around, if anyone has any questions on specific one, specific requests, Emily,
No questions, thank you.
thanks. Jonathan,
I don't have anything, Sandy.
all right, great. And Travis,
Leah, do they have to do any sort of maintenance on those separators to keep them working? Like pump it out or something? Do you know?
I'm sure there's an O&M plan that is most likely referenced in that planning board decision. I can double
Oh,
check.
okay. Just curious. Nothing
Yeah.
else from me. I think that should work.
yeah, typically the maintenance is, based on the depth of sediment. So the first couple of years is every year, every couple of years, so you figure out how much sediment you have to remove, and then there's a certain depth it can get to. So I would agree with Leah, it's on the O&M. So, thanks for that question, Travis. So we'll do a roll call vote. Okay, we'll do a motion to recommend that it's approved to exceed the impervious area for 7 Main Street. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to provide approval of design to building inspector.
Design to building inspector. Design to building inspector. Design to building inspector.
So someone's got multiple mics on. So if you're not talking, please make sure you mute yourself. So thank you. So we have a motion to make the recommendation. Do I have a second?
Second.
My motion, a second, roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a yes, the motion carries. so you can take care of the rest, as you always do. Thank you. We got 3 minutes. Minor change request,
Yeah, that should fit.
okay, 3840 Adams Road, fill in the details.
Yeah, those are two house lots that came before us. I think it was just an RDA at the time because they're in our bylaw jurisdictional buffer to floodplain, I think it was. So it was
Okay.
RDAs for the two lots. Now that they have buyers, they've finalized the house design and then the grading needed with them, so it changes the layout on the sites a little bit. And then house number 38 also needs to retrieve a pile of fill that was previously piled actually on Hennessy instead of on the lot, or at least partly on Hennessy, by the past developer, I suppose. So they need our permission just to take that fill that was meant to be on their lot from our conservation land and then bring it back to their lot and use it. So I wanted to just formally document that as well, so they have that in writing from us. So it's twofold. I would recommend approving the minor change and granting permission to access Hennessy for that fill that they need. And then I have two conditions: one, that the fill shall be completely removed to the pre-existing grade, no more, no less. And then the area of the previous fill will be seeded with meadow seed mix.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this one? Travis,
No.
Jonathan,
No questions, seems straightforward.
thank you. And Emily,
No questions.
do I have a motion to issue the minor change and also include the conditions that Leah mentioned?
I'll move to approve the minor change and grant permission to access Hennessy with the conditions described by the agent.
Sounds good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
I just realized when you speak, you come up on the big screen, so that's why you get called on first. I'm somewhat random on the order I go in. So, Travis
Yes.
and Jonathan,
Yes.
I am also a yes, the motion carries. All right, 7:15 now. Hey. So back up. All right, so first public hearing, 42 McGill Drive. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, drafting Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a requested determination of applicability for the tree removal at 42 McGill Drive. And who's here to speak to that?
I'm here, Byron Andrews from Dupree Engineering.
Great, and you have the floor.
Thank you. So the site is off of McGill Drive. It's behind two lots that are undeveloped at this time, about 200 feet behind it, adjacent to a pond. The McGill Associates removed a number of trees. The area is about 7,500 square feet. It's adjacent to a wetlands area. Portion of the tree removal is within the 25-foot buffer. None of the tree removal is within the wetland resource area. I think probably when they removed the trees, they were unaware that they were that close to a wetland because it's not readily apparent until you go into the wetlands. The reason for the tree removal is they want to shift the golf course slightly away from the adjacent house lots in order to provide for the safety of the residents of those house lots once they're constructed. So basically, they want to continue the golf course, as you can see, kind of keep it along the same line that it is on the east side there up to the pond. They are eager to have the problem solved. They like to plant, loam and seed it. If they're allowed to continue They will do that very quickly and stabilize the area in a matter of days.
Okay, Leah, got a report out on this?
Yes, so just one other thing that was touched on in the narrative was, so the area that Byron's talking about is in yellow on this visual. The narrative did touch on the one in pink as well, which is an area disturbed by somebody else, but it is on the Highfields property. And that one is, if you guys can see the red line, that's pretty hard to see, but that other area is nearly all wetland. So that is something we'll have to address as well, whether we want to talk about it tonight or some other way. They're requesting a waiver for work in the no disturb, just by nature of where the clearing occurred. And I believe stumps are still there, but they intend to take them out as well. That's all I have.
All right, and as far as erosion control plans for this activity?
We have not prepared an erosion control plan. We would be happy to place erosion control on the east side there adjacent to the wetlands and put that in place before doing any more work.
Okay. So let me go around first to the Conservation Commission members to see if they have any other questions. And then we'll open up to the public. Travis.
So I'm in a butter to this situation, so I'm recusing myself.
All right, thank you very much. Someday I'll actually remember that, but I still have to ask you no matter what. So, Jonathan, any questions on this?
So we don't know what happened in the pink area, Leah, that those trees have been taken down in a similar style to what's been happening in the yellow area, or that's a different type of disturbance?
I'm actually gonna throw that one to Byron. I'm not sure myself.
So that is actually something more of a serious disturbance in the area. Not only have trees been taken down, but there's been grading in there. Some of the soil and brush have been pushed up into a pile. There's a lot more disturbance in there. The surface of the ground has been moved and removed. Whereas in our area, all they've done so far is cut down the trees.
Okay. You mentioned putting erosion and sediment controls up. You said along the east side that's up against the wetland. Are you concerned about sediment of any kind going into that pond as well?
We will put erosion control adjacent to the pond too, because as you point out, that is a concern because it's a downward gradient to the pond, obviously. So we'll have the erosion control basically on the north side up to the 100-foot buffer on the east side, adjacent to the area that we've marked in yellow, and also we'll add some to the south side to prevent any runoff into the wetland area.
Okay. Is there plans for mitigation of this on another part of the golf course, the work at all? Or I mean, I guess we're just talking about the yellow area in question right now, Leah. I mean, that's I guess I don't know if they're two separate issues. Are we really only discussing the yellow area at this time?
So the application from the applicant is for the yellow area, but the pink was brought to our attention as well. The pink is definitely more wetland impacts, and it is on the applicant's property. Whether or not they undertook that activity, some kind of coordination will need to be worked out as to what's required going forward. But I thought it could be part of this discussion now, since they're right adjacent to each other and we're talking about, restoration and previous cutting and disturbance.
So as the applicant, is there, with the work being done in the yellow, is this all brand new to you, Byron? Or the pink area, is that brand new to you as of this meeting, or were you aware of this work going on?
I was aware of it. I was informed of it by Mr. McGill. He told me that one of the neighbors had disturbed that area. And I think Leah also, I think Leah may, or someone from the Conservation Commission may have brought that to his attention initially.
Okay. All right, I don't think I have any further questions, Sandy.
All right, thank you. Emily?
No questions, thank you.
All right. So just so that I'm clear and everyone else is clear, so the yellow area was, that was performed by the applicant, basically. And it's partially done, but it's not entirely completed. The area in, we'll call it pink magenta, whatever color you'd like to call it, that was actually done by an abutter. But you're bringing it up just to let us know. Is that kind of, do I have that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. The Conservation Commission was aware of the area in magenta, and we wanted to show it on our plan for clarity and to make sure that we were complete in showing any disturbances in that area.
Okay. So, and again, let's just spend a moment on the magenta, not so much what exactly you're doing, but what your intentions are kind of moving forward. Is that something that the applicant is going to try to restore, or are they going to pursue the abutter who did this disturbance to do, restoration work? Or do you know that yet?
I don't know that. There was some discussion of that, but I don't know if that's something that our client would be willing to do. I can discuss it with him and be happy to update the commission within the next few days after talking to him.
And that's fine, because that's not specifically what's in front of us. I have a tendency to say that because we're aware of it, this is an RDA. There's several ways that, we can kind of facilitate getting the area in the magenta restored. You can either do it part of this RDA, or we can do a friendly enforcement. There's a bunch of different ways. But I think, for tonight, I think what we should, concentrate is the trees that were taken down in the yellow, and understand, I know you happen to indicate safety issues. Well, the golf course has been there for a while, you're just changing and the approach and so forth. But you are still working within the buffer zone. And again, we're talking the yellow area, and you're encroaching on the 25 no disturb zone. And my understanding is those trees are already cut. So then it's what has to be the next step. And then you're also looking for basically a waiver to do that, to make that work already done in the buffer zone hole, so to speak. That's generally what we're trying to do here tonight.
That's correct.
Okay. So, Leah, as far as kind of, and I think that the trick is what is done is done. I mean, I don't know what the size trees are. I mean, looking at the canopy, they were decent sized trees. We're not magically going to restore those trees or glue them back together. So that's not something that we can pursue. I think what we can talk about is what is the intention. Is the issue here based upon the layout of the hole? Is that you're trying to reduce the trees so that you can have a flight path over the pond to the green, or are you envisioning people, laying up right before the pond and, then going over the pond? I'm just curious from a function standpoint, what it is that you're trying to do, because I think it makes a difference with what kind of the area of a fairway in the area of kind of restoration work.
To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I'm not a golfer, and our client hasn't discussed how he wants to lay it out. I just know what he communicated to me is he wants to make sure that any use of the golf area is as far away from those lots as possible.
Because, yeah, and I'm a golfing hack, so I'm not really that proficient at of discussing what the function is and so forth. And I'm not a golf course designer, but I'm just thinking, you know, everything outside the 25-foot no disturb is one area, and then the area within the 25-foot disturbance has to be discussed with the commission is maybe that's a restoration into a little bit more, you know, native species, maybe not trees, but just something as a little bit of a buffer so that you're not 2 feet away from the wetlands. Do you think that is something the applicant would be open to?
I think so, yes. It's not a large area, so I think that would be acceptable.
So just to kind of go around to the rest of the commissioners to kind of get their input and their opinion on that kind of approach. Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm again, not to speak for the applicant, but it seems like it would achieve if it was just the area in the yellow that's not also encroaching into the 25-foot, that would probably achieve or may have already been achieved. So if there was replication or some type of patchback included in that 25-foot buffer to restore that area or create more of a little bit of a continue that buffer, that might be a reasonable thing. I'm unaware from this plan what's been cut, and you know, does the applicant know if in the yellow area, in the pocket, the biggest pocket between the light blue line of the buffer and the yellow at the southeast corner of the yellow, is that all completely stripped down and just stumps now, or has that been left in that corner, and is the deforestation just in the heart of the yellow?
And no, the entire area has been cut down to stumps.
Okay. Yeah, Sandy, I agree with your mindset that if that's amenable to the applicant, that might be the best solution, is to maintain the buffer, restore the buffer, and allow for that section to be removed or stumped and cleaned up if that's outside of the buffer, as some sort of a balance there. Again, as a hack golfer, I'd probably end up in the pond. So, you know, I'm unsure the safety factor if people are driving directly into, you know, the lot 203 and 220 off to the left, and that's the concern, or what the actual concern is really, because again, the houses are pretty well set back off of this, but I'm not sure what the layup is south of the screen. So that's my only thought. I agree with your thought, Sandy.
All right, thanks. Travis, anything to add?
Nope, nothing from me.
Okay. Emily.
What about the yellow line that's directly basically on the red line of the wetland?
So good question. I mean, I think what I'm proposing is that there's already been work in that area, right? So you can't glue the trees back on. So what's done is done. And what I'm saying is that from the red to the blue, the area of the no disturb, in that area there, you could have, you know, kind of a herbaceous, shrubby kind of, you know, restoration to protect the wetlands in that corner. And then the rest of the area that has been cleared would end up being converted to basically grass to be in the fairway. So.
Okay, then I'm in agreement with you. Thank you.
All right. So Leah, as far as that is that's kind of what you were looking for as far as, you know, what the restoration should be as opposed to what's already been done and what's gonna result in.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I don't know if we need to make the decision tonight, but we do need to figure out what to do with the pink at some point.
Right. Yeah, and that's where I'm thinking that maybe what I would suggest is that Byron goes back to the applicant and say, well, I mean, I think, you know, there's a couple ways of handling it. One is take care of the yellow because that's what's in front of us. We know about it, it's adjacent to it. It's not the same, you know, based on the information that was given to us. It's, you know, the two areas of disturbance were done by two different parties, so it's not quite the same. So then the next question is which I think is one of the things I was toying with was, do we put in a condition in this RDA that says, you know, the applicant has, I don't know, 60 days to determine or to, you know, provide a restoration plan or to let us know that, you know, they're looking for an enforcement plan, an enforcement order. And again, the whole idea is to get it to the point where we can get it restored. But I think based on what was discussed tonight, that restoration is not the same as converting some buffer zone into fairway as opposed to work that was or alterations done in the wetland. So, and comes down to the bottom line is that the applicant is the one that kind of has control over it based on what's been submitted. You know, and if nothing's done, then obviously we'll do an enforcement order, but there are ways to use an enforcement order to get things done in a quicker way. And I think we don't want to leave that for the whole summer and not having canopy on it and so forth, because then you run into the potential of losing wetland area. So.
If I may, just to represent my client, I know that he does have some other areas that he's doing restoration in, and considering the fact that this area was not disturbed by him, it was another party. If there's an enforcement order, could the enforcement order be on the party that actually did the damage?
That actually gets a little bit dicey from our perspective. So basically, it's who owns the property, and we can check with town council. We're not usually the ones who are trying to figure out who has to pay for it, meaning if it wasn't a butter, you know, we're not going to go after a butter for doing something on this property. So typically our enforcement is based on the property owner. And Leah, we can double check with our with town council on that, but I don't think we would get into what is generally a civil issue, you know, between two parties. I mean, they can come to an agreement and we're happy to work with the participants to get it done faster and to kind of expedite the process. But we're not, you know, how can I say this? Our authority as far as what we can have done and who we can seek to do that, I think is somewhat limited under the Wetlands Protection Act, and it's based in the owner. And we understand what you're saying, which is why I'm trying to be a little bit flexible on how that happens in the kind of steps. And again, I don't know all the details, and I don't know the conversations that have happened between the two property owners, and if you know, if there's going to be some sort of agreement on who's paying for it, to be quite honest. And we don't really want to get involved in that. And I don't think we have the authority, to be honest. So, but that's something we would have to double check with town council. But I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, if you could check with town council and see if there's any options to that. Otherwise, I'll communicate your concerns to my client, and we'll circle back with the commission.
Right. And obviously we want to work with you to get it done sooner than later for that area. But I also need to be careful about you know, what is our jurisdiction and, you know,
Hmm.
and the authority that we have in the mechanism through enforcement orders, what we can do. Um, um, don't know all the details enough to even kind of go down that road yet, but
Sandy, do you mind if I cut in for a second?
absolutely, if I'm off track here, please let me know.
So we did have 116 Creeper Hill kind of recently, if you remember that one, and I believe the way it played out was that I believe National Grid was the property owner, but then the homeowner who needs to access his property, like across an easement on their property, was the violator in this case. So we were able to issue that enforcement order, and I think it named the abutter as the violator, but an enforcement order does also need to name the property owner and go to the property owner. But in this case, unless your client or somebody else knows who actually did that, I don't know who I'm sending that mail to.
In that particular case, you're absolutely right, but that second party had an easement across the property.
Right.
So he was working within his easement and had a right to it. And in that case, everyone kind of acknowledged what was going on. And then there was agreement on how to correct that. So those are legalities which, I am not an attorney. I am not going to guess, you know, the final points on you know, enforcement in this type of condition. So let me ask a general question. So you have an RDA in front of us. We've already kind of gone through the steps about which way we're thinking. Yeah, we don't need to keep this open if that magenta area, the other, you know, area of disturbance to actual wetlands is not under this particular RDA, correct?
Correct. So in theory, we could close on the yellow and just figure out another way to address the pink.
Yeah, it's either another RDA or notice of intent, depending upon the extent, or it's either a friendly enforcement order or it's an enforcement order. So there's several choices there that we can use. So at this time, would like to open up to anyone from the public that has any questions or comments on this particular site. Please raise your hand. If you do, we will respond to it and have the applicant answer this, answer any questions as I keep talking. And again, Travis is in a butter, so he's going to be recusing himself. So let me go to Jonathan. If there's anything else, I mean, we still have to do a vote on working within the no disturb, but is there anything else that you have to add to this discussion?
What exactly is if we were to vote on the no disturb work, what are we voting on for the work? Like, what are they restoring that area? Is that what we're voting on? Or are we going to, is that clear to the client and to the client's representative
think-
and our team?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And we can talk in generalities, but we need to have, whether it's a sketch showing that area, what that restoration is in that area, would be very helpful so that we know what we're approving. And then confirmation, and again, this can be done on a sketch level. I don't think we need a set of plans or anything. Where the area of the trees are going is just to have it clearly identified of what is, you know, is it all going to be just fairway? Is there going to be, I don't know, a sand trap there? I don't know. Just want to make sure that we understand what is going on in that area.
Yeah, that's my only point would be, I don't know what to vote on there. If we're approving work in that area, are we defining what that work is, or do we need to wait for a plan or something?
Okay. All right. Emily, anything else to add to that?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay. And so Byron, could you do a quick sketch of those two areas? So that we fully know what is gonna be happening to the area in the yellow that's already disturbed. And you've already heard this discussion, which direction we're going in, and then you can follow up on the magenta to see if there's any other. If you want to bring that into this RDA, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not really gonna answer that one for you. So,
Yeah, we can prepare. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
We can prepare a plan showing what we're planning in the area of disturbance outside the 25-foot, whether it's green or whatever, and also restoration within the 25-foot. We'll also show erosion control on the plan.
That would be very helpful. And Leah, anyone from the public requested or raised their hand?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing that, so then back to you, Byron, if you would like to request a continuance to our next hearing.
Yes, I would like to request a continuance.
And Leah, I know our meetings have been kind of all over the place with elections and so forth. When is our next meeting?
June 18th.
Okay. Okay. So, no one from the public had any comments or questions. So can I have a motion to continue the hearing to June 18th?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for 42 McGill Drive, Highfields, to June 18th.
Do I have a second?
Second,
I have a motion, a second. I will do a roll call vote. Starting with Travis, I understand that you are recusing yourself. You can just confirm that.
Yep, recusing myself.
All right, thank you. Jonathan,
Yes.
Emily,
yes.
I am also a yes. So the public hearing is continued to June 18th. And please just try to get the sketches in a timely manner for the staff to review it.
Yep.
And if you have any questions, please reach out to staff.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right.
We'll see you on the 18th.
Thanks. All right. All right, Leah, falling behind here. Okay.
The other three are continuations, so there's no certain times.
Okay. Hold on one second. Sorry. Cord was underneath my chair. I was gonna go flying in a moment. Okay. Just go right in order.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so next up is 8 Hudson Ave. So pursuant to Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act on a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of a single-family house at 8 Hudson Ave. And who's here to speak to that?
Yes, good evening. This is Norman Hill. Can you all hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, Norm. You got the floor.
Great. Could you put the drawing up for us? I'd like to look at the right-hand side of the drawing. I introduced this to you, and Arthur Allen has been out to review this application. So if you look at this site, the river is along the northern lot line. The river's up here along the northern lot line. Hudson Avenue is down on the east side of the property. There's an existing house in here now. What's peculiar is this northern third of the lot is currently all lawn. This has been part of the existing house. So this area here has been part of their yard. So this was all lawn. You couldn't mow this in April or May because it'd be too wet. I mean, you'd be splashing in water. But June and July, August, you could probably mow this, September, October. So they had a concrete pad here. I don't know what they use that for, maybe a little patio. It's probably about 14 by 16. And there's some debris, some old junk, some metal and whatnot over here. And there's a bunch of cut arborvitaes laying in here. I don't know who cut them. So when Arthur went out to this site, he noticed this disturbance in here. So what we've done, we've said that debris and the concrete shall be removed from the BBW by hand. We don't want to bring a machine in here. Contractor's going to have to go in with sledgehammers and wheelbarrows and pull all this junk out of here. And also put a note up here that says the arborvitaes will be removed, but not the stumps. The stumps will just remain. There's stumps all along here of arborvitaes. So we don't want to do any more disturbance in here. We just want to get the junk and the concrete pad out of there and let all this grow back naturally. And it will quickly, I'm sure. And then the upper 25 feet, we're going to plant. We're going to plant it with blueberries, river birch, and what was the other dogwood? I like. It was. Anyway, that's all going to be replanted. Now, we have, there are two waivers that are going to be required for this site. One is, because we're doing work within 25 feet of the wetland, we've submitted a waiver for that and paid the $50 application fee. And also, the contiguous upland of this lot is 21,000 square feet. Now, this is an R40 zone, and your bylaw says you need to have 75% of the minimum lot area is upland. Well, 75% of 40,000 would be 30,000 square feet. We've only 21,000 square feet. So we've asked for those two waivers. I don't know if you remember, I don't want to go through what we went through last time. There's existing home here, going to be knocked down. The new home would be built here. Exact same impervious lot coverage, exact same riverfront alteration. So Arthur was all okay with all of the details of this application. He just didn't like this debris over here. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
You're muted, Sandy, if you're talking.
Thank you. You noted in your report about an unknown cesspool. So Norm, do you have any idea where the cesspool is?
Well, I'm having trouble understanding you, Sandy. It's coming across muddled.
Okay. That help?
A little bit, yeah. What did you ask, Sandy?
Oh, there's a cesspool on site that is not identified, it's unknown. Do you have any idea where it is? And what are your plans if you run into it?
Well, you asked me about something on site. You asked me if I have any plans for it. I didn't quite understand what it is.
The cesspool that came up at the
Oh,
beginning hearing, I think you said there's a cesspool, but the location is unknown. So what are your plans for handling that?
I would suggest the contractor find it, fill it for a Title V. It's most likely on the lower end of the house in this area, but we couldn't find it. But it's probably right in this area. I suggest that get found and filled for a Title V.
Okay. Leo, why don't you go through your kind of recommendations?
Okay, so aside from the two waivers that we need to vote on, I have special conditions that I drafted. One that further alteration is prohibited within the restoration area, except as may be required to maintain the area in its restored condition. Two, I know Norman said they do not intend to use machinery, but just in case mechanized equipment is used to break up and remove that foundation slab from the wetland, it shall be operated on temporary swamp mats to minimize wetland soil disturbance. Three, if regrading is necessary in the wetland restoration area after the slab is removed, it shall be done with wetland soils consisting of a mixture of 50% screened loam and 50% leaf compost or peat. Number four, native wetland seed mix shall be used within the wetland restoration areas, and the seed mix specification shall be provided to the commission for approval. And five, the no disturb signage and barrier shall be installed as shown on the plan.
All right. Thank you. So I'll go around to the commissioners to see if they have any other questions or comments. Jonathan, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything.
Great. So, I'm sorry, I just lost my place. Okay, so we still need to do that. Okay, Emily, anything else? Any questions or anything else to add?
No questions for me, thank you.
So, as far as Leah, as far as the two waivers requests, so as far as the temporary work and the no disturb, I mean, it's pretty obvious, so the findings on that is pretty easy. As far as the 30,000 square feet of, continuous upland requirement, I think we just need to, have a finding that explains it's a pre-existing house, and that actually the overall impacts are, to wetlands is actually being reduced as far as, restoring some of the no disturb area, and that the amount of impervious area is being matched for findings. So
Okay.
let's first, so having said those, let's just open up. If anyone has any comments or questions from the public, please raise your hand. We will call on you once you do that, and happy to have questions answered. Other than that, Travis, do you have any other comments on this?
I think you answered my question. I wasn't following the waiver for the upland area, but it sounds like we've got that covered.
It's basically, even though there was already a house there, I think, Leah, you said we got recommendation from council to still do the waiver so that it's documented, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so based on those things, do I have a motion for the temporary work within the no disturb zone?
I'll make a motion to approve the temporary work within the no disturb zone.
Do I have a second?
Second,
A motion, a second, roll call vote. Emily,
yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I am also a yes. So as far as the second waiver for the upland requirement, and again, this is not a new house on a lot. This doesn't comply. This is a tear down and a rebuild and meeting the existing impervious and actually getting farther away from the wetlands. So based on that, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to grant a waiver for the contiguous upland requirement.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote. Emily,
yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I am also a yes. That motion carries. So we have the two waivers have been voted on. Does anyone else have any other comments on what we developed as far as special conditions, or is there anything else that you can see based on our discussion of any other special conditions? Jonathan,
No questions, and I don't see anything else.
okay. Travis
Nope, nothing else.
and Emily.
No questions for me, thank you.
I also do not have any other comments or any recommendations for conditions. Anyone from the public is wishing to speak, Leah or Jan?
Nothing from the public.
All right, thank you. Leah, is there anything else that we should be including here?
Nope, all set.
All set, which means, can I have a motion to approve, issue an order of conditions and close the hearing? I'm trying to read and think and talk at the same time. It's not working. Okay.
I'll move to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions with the conditions described for 8 Hudson Avenue.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second,
We have a motion second, roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
I am also a yes. Motion carries and the order is issued.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for helping me protect the wetlands. Thank you for helping me improve my neighborhood, one house at a time. Thank you. Stay well.
No problem. All right, have a good one, Norm. All right, continuing all down the line, Leah. Next up is 5 Millennium Drive. Which my paperwork. Okay, so pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom to act upon the notice of intent, application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of multifamily resident at 5 Millennium Drive. And who's here to speak to that?
Good evening. My name is Bill Lovett. I'm with the Claremont Company. Thank you again for the commission's time this evening. As noted, we were in front of the commission a few weeks ago. We've subsequently received the peer review comments, and Phil Cadero from Allen and Major is going to give an update on where we stand with the plans. And then we also have Tyler Peer from Main Drilling and Blasting, who Phil will introduce in a little more detail, but who will talk to us about the blasting relative to our ability to phase the project and disturb the area, which was one of the requests and comments of the commission in our previous meeting. So with that, I will hand it over to Phil.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. For the record, Bill Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, registered professional engineer. As Bill had alluded to, we had our meeting a few weeks ago. We left the meeting from the commission with a little bit of homework. First and foremost, we had not yet received our file number from DEP. That has now been issued. It is on the record. DEP's only comment to the application was confirming whether or not this application would be subject to a MEPA review, which it will not be. We don't trigger any of the thresholds, nor do we have the state permit actions that would otherwise require us to file. So we believe we have put that to bed. So that was our first administrative hurdle. As Bill had also mentioned, what we lacked at our previous hearing was the peer review from your town consultant, Graves Engineering. Graves was acting on behalf of both the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, so they were wearing multiple hats. We did finally obtain the peer review the week before last. I don't know if the commission's had a chance to review it, but very, very simply, he had a handful of comments that required some clarifications on the plans, some addenda to our narrative, which we are in the process of submitting information back to him to get that final sign off. For specific purposes of the Conservation Commission under the Wetlands Protection Bylaw, if the commission has at their disposal the Graves peer review, I would draw your attention to comment number 6, which reads, quote, GEI has no issues, excuse me, relative to compliance with the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, except as noted in the following comment. Comment number 7, he goes on to identify again, quote, page 4 to 5 of the project narrative and drainage report contains 2 sets of total suspended solids calculations, 1 set with an isolator row and 1 set without. An isolator row or another BMP is needed to achieve at least 80% TSS removal prior to stormwater entering the infiltration compartment of a BMP. However, the plans do not show an isolator row. And I draw our attention collectively to that one because with all due respect to Mr. Walsh, he's an excellent peer reviewer, he's an excellent engineer. He misread one of our TSS tables. And what I have in the report for the commission and the planning board's review is because this site is considered a land use with a higher pollutant loading potential, we need to achieve 44% pre-treatment prior to an infiltration device. So we provided 2 TSS removal tables, one that occurs prior to the infiltration device and then one that occurs by the infiltration device. And he incorrectly assumed that an isolator row was missing on one of them. But that's not really what it was intended to show. So we're happy to correct that maybe that inconsistency or that ambiguity with Jeff and certainly wrap things up. In terms of stormwater management, which we understand this commission obviously has purview to under the stormwater permit that you'll issue, I will draw your attention to Graves' comment 8, which says GEI has no issues relative to compliance with these regulations, which is referring to regulations governing stormwater management. Oh, this is perfect. Thank you so much, Administrator, for putting this on the screen. I'll stop narrating to you. So comment 8 is what I was just quoting there, which is based on stormwater management. So the stage that I'm obviously trying to set up here is that they have signed off that they don't see any issues from the peer review perspective on the wetlands bylaw, nor from the town of Grafton stormwater management. He does go on to identify a couple of typographical inconsistencies that we're happy to resolve for him. And I'm happy to walk through the commission through those particular individual comments if you would like this evening, if that suits you. The other homework assignment that we left with was Madam Chair had asked us for some cross-sectional information for the work adjacent to the wetlands. Apologies that wasn't submitted well in advance of this meeting, but I did provide it to your administrator today, and I'm hopeful that they can share the screen just so I can walk the commission through what's happening relative to cross-sections. Excellent, thank you so much. So you'll note that there are 3 cross-sections provided. The one in the top left corner is a cross-section through the sloped area adjacent to the wetland resource area and its buffers. The middle cross-section is effectively the middle cross-section through our parking lots, proposed retaining wall, and the wetland resource area and its buffers. And then the lowest section in the lower left corner is a section that routes through our drainage field, through a retaining wall, and then into the resource area buffer, and then ultimately the resource area. I think if the administrator can zoom in on the one on the lower left, I think that may be the one that we had the most discussion on during the last meeting. None. Maybe a little bit more, please, on the left, if you wouldn't mind. What this is intended to show is on the left of the CC cross section is the multi-story building that's on the left of the plan. Our parking field, which is designated by where those cars are located. But what was interested by conversation is the location of our stormwater system, which is shown as the underground box, adjacent to the proposed retaining wall. And as a reminder, that stormwater system is the storm trap concrete vault. So there is no sidewall discharge. It's only a vertical downward movement of water. But that's placed approximately 12 feet behind the retaining wall. And then the vertical movement of water is such that it'll go down and intercept existing grade prior to discharging through the face of our wall. Our conversation was to ensure that there was no bleed out of stormwater through that retaining wall. And hopefully this cross-section can identify that information for the commission members. The other takeaway here is that the distance from the face of our wall to the wetland resource areas, including the 25-foot no-touch buffer, which is respected, is wooded area that will largely remain. So that's designated by the treed areas on all 3 cross-sections. And finally, what these cross-sections hopefully identify is Madam Chair had asked very specifically whether we believed these walls to be constructible and whether or not we knew what these walls were going to be constructed out of. These cross-sections don't discuss materiality. We don't know yet what the walls are going to be, whether they're going to be large segmental block retaining walls, cast in place retaining walls, or some form of wall that can utilize existing ledge depending on where the cut happens across the site. But the cross sections hopefully will show the commission that all of our activities are taking place completely upstream of the wetland resource areas and the buffers, and that the limit of work, limit of disturbance line that we've shown on the plan can be completely held during the entirety of construction because all activity will occur on the site development side of the resource areas, and those walls will rise up as the site will continue to rise during construction. So while we don't know exactly what those walls would be, they would be structurally engineered walls. They are subject to a building permit. We have to calculate the final load, including any applicable hydrostatic pressures. But hopefully for commission purposes, you can see the relationship of those areas in terms of overall constructability. Now, when we talk about the site in general, the other play that will come in is the other concern that the commission had at the last meeting is we did request a waiver to allow for a single phase of construction on the site, meaning our ability to open up the entirety of the site because of the nature of the earthwork, which will involve some blasting and removal of material. The commission wanted to hear from us in terms of what our strategic approach was to removal of material, how it will be phased, how it will be done, how it will be trucked away. So we've brought with us here this evening Tyler Peer, who works for Main Drilling and Blasting. Main Drilling and Blasting gave a very similar presentation to the planning board last week. Because this is a very complex site, we want to make sure that the boards in town understand how we're going to build it. So rather than relay that information, we've brought in the professionals from Maine directly, so you can engage with them and ask them any pertinent questions that you might deem appropriate in terms of their actions. So why don't I bring Tyler on at this time, ask him to give the commission an overview of how he intends to construct and manage the site. And then once he concludes, certainly a commission can ask him any questions. And then Bill and I can circle back and answer any questions that have come up out of this presentation or any of the new information that the commission has been presented between these hearings. So Tyler, if you would unmute, or if he'd be allowed to unmute, and please share your information with the commission.
Yes. Good evening, all. So I'm Tyler Peer, the divisional superintendent in Massachusetts for Main Drilling and Blasting. We are local. Our office is in Milford. We are not all traveling down from Maine to do this, and all our employees are local as well. So a few things just in terms for phasing that I kind of wanted to highlight here was if we want to pull up an overall site plan, which I do not know, maybe the existing conditions plan, maybe. There's a overall. This would work.
Jan, if I could interrupt, if you go to, might be helpful to go to sheet 28 of 47 in the overall PDF, please. Sorry to interrupt you, Tyler.
Oh, thank you, Phil.
Maybe go back one. It's sheet C701. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. Oh, the pretty colorful one. There you go,
Perfect.
Tyler.
Yeah, perfect. So yes, what this shows is the overall cut fill, which I'm sure you guys are all aware of. But from a phasing standpoint, just what Phil had spoken to is the darker red area is the deeper cut, and the bluer area is the deeper fills where the site kind of transitions and moves to. So to visually represent Phil's point here, we have to start blasting roughly where the green and the yellow are, and take that ledge and then move it to the blues to slowly bring up the grades to build the site as a whole. So unfortunately, if you didn't fill those blue areas, you would be left with a very tight area where you're not able to continue any work And you would also add, a lot of trucks and things like that if you had to offload all of this and bring it back in a different phase. A lot of truck traffics and things like that. So this is a very properly designed project, I would say, in terms of phasing, but you do need the whole site to work for the blasting to really be feasible here. And then another point for the blasting from a phasing standpoint is blasting is a science. It's an art, and we did speak to that a lot at the planning board meeting. And I'll more or less keep it high level for now. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But there's a safety aspect here where a blaster gets comfortable and familiar with the ledge that he's blasting, and it's very important that the blaster is familiar and consistent, and the work is done constantly, so that when you're placing charges and et cetera, you're doing things very similar and making slight adjustments every day. Where if you had a 2-month gap or a 6-month gap, those adjustments can be documented, but it's just human nature and human actions here to really dictate how the blast occurs. Another second item I wanted to speak to, just the no one enjoys blasting. And the more you prolong the process, anytime you're blasting in a neighborhood, or which this isn't necessarily a neighborhood, but anytime you're blasting with neighbors, the first thing they ask is, when are you going to be done? So keeping it consistent and just getting in, getting out is just ideal in this situation. And it works for the project. It's safe, and it keeps the neighboring residents appeased. And I think that's my quick high level topics, but I'm more than happy to address anything, unless Bill has any more.
Sure. I just add, Tyler, one of the things that you mentioned, which I thought was a really good point at the planning board meeting too, is the lower grade is to the east of the property, which is the fill in the blue, so to the right of the screen. And when they start blasting, they're going to be blasting effectively from right to left. So the blasting will start, to the right of the pool, and then they'll kind of work uphill into the higher ledge where the deeper red is. That gives them the opportunity to give relief to the blast, as I'm learning, so that when they blast, they'll have the mats and everything on top to make sure that the blast is contained, but they'll have relief. So the blast will happen, as we look on this page, from right to left up the hill, and the spoils from that, or a lot of the spoils, as much as possible of that spoil, will be kept on site, which again is the reason that it's important for us to be able to move this material in one large phase. But thank you, Tyler. That was a great overview.
All right, thank you for that. So I'm gonna go around the commission to see if other folks have some questions. I've got a few, but Jonathan, any questions? Just let's keep it to the blasting for right now, and the overall site being disturbed at one time.
No questions on the blasting.
Okay. Travis
No, not on the blasting.
and Emily.
No questions, thank you.
Okay. So, I have a few questions on the blasting. I understand that, you'll have to go through a permit process. We don't really partake in that. That's not really our purview. My questions are just more about logistics and where things go and what they're say what the shape they are. So the first kind of question is just generally, this is a growth cut and fill where you've got, in some areas, 40 feet of cut, and then in other areas, 20 something feet and fill and so forth. So you got to cut and fill, and you design your plan to be somewhat balanced, although it's not fully balanced. It's a cut site. But what is the general overburden over the ledge? Is there kind of a consistency? Is it variable? Is there some areas that are, 1 foot of overburden, and other areas that there's 20 feet of overburden?
Pull that up. Typically our practice is all topsoil is stripped off, and we typically leave 3 feet of overburden on top of the rock. If there's overburden on the rock, let me pull that up to get you a answer to that question though.
And again, our kind of purview is our concerns is just making sure that we protect the wetlands. And of course, one of the key component of that is just the handling of materials and what kind of materials. And you'll see in a second, I have a couple of questions. You'll get where I'm going. But
yeah. 1 second. So yeah, I'm just looking at our cut fill right now on the side, and there's a maximum of about 5 feet of overburden on this, with an average of about 4 in the blasting area.
Which is absolutely fine. It answers that question because basically most of this is going to be a rock cut, which is, again, it is what it is. I'm not this. For me, it's just the process that you're going through. So one of the questions I had is that in your blasting, are you going to do any post-blasting processing of the rock? And it's up to you on how you do it. I'm more concerned with what's underneath the storm trap, what's underneath that, what are all these structures specifically closest to the wetlands and near the retaining wall? Are you going to take the majority of that rock and process it? Or are you just going to blast it and put in the different sizes in there? I'm just wondering if you're going to have voids, if you're going to have compaction, and just how much processing you're going to do on site on this amount of ledge.
We try and blast the rock to the direction of the geotechnical engineer specification. So I would refer to Bill on if the geotech has clarified any of that.
Sure. So the intent will be that we can process and use as much as possible on site. At this point, it's also going to be dependent to an extent on which site work contractor is utilized on the project. Some, if a general or a site contractor has a use for the material that they can use at a different project, they may process some of it on site more or less. But the idea is to keep as much on site as we can on our end.
Again, I'm just trying to fit the puzzle together as far as, from a site standpoint and from erosion control and so forth. Obviously, if you have exposed, lead, you're not going to have a lot of soil running off of it. And I heard what you said, that you like to keep an overburden on it when you're doing the blasting. There's a lot of reasons for you to do that. I'm thinking more of, how it impacts along the retaining wall. And I think it's great if you process the rock and you can reuse it for, pavement, base and all that kind of good stuff. That's not up to me. That's not really jurisdictional for us. It's more, I'm looking at the fairly substantial, fills along the wetland side, and the fact that you have all the storm traps over there, and what's it sitting on, how many voids are underneath there, those type of questions.
So we typically when we actually enjoy it's easier to blast when you have a deeper cut. Most of the rock will be very small. And when I say small, 6-inch minus, and some even smaller. The deeper the cut, the better the breakages. To explain that, I can't, when loading a typical borehole, I can't bring that powder up into the column. Typically, at 5 is the highest and 8's the maximum. So that's typically on the top is where you're left with your larger, rock. And that rock is typically moved off to the side and, used as landscape rock or, placed in other areas of the job that aren't on the retaining walls. But on the retaining wall area, it's blasted very small with fines and very suitable material and compacted in lifts.
And again, if there is, obviously a lot of my questions have just surrounding potential conditions, and the conditions are less about, it's more about if the geotech has certain specs for his, for what needs to be placed in lifts and so forth, as long as that's followed. Structural engineer has certain specs on his backfill behind the walls, those type of things. I want to make sure those things are met.
Right.
And then just kind of understanding when you have a site this size, then you have a fairly robust blasting program. There's going to be a lot of larger rocks and so forth that are sitting there. And again, it's more just around to make sure we fully understand the process, and that at some point there's no impacts to creating issues on the site with erosion control or with backfill not meeting certain specifications. We're not designing anything for you guys. We just need to understand the process and so forth. And I've worked on a lot of sites with really large amount of blasting, so I kind of get it, and been exposed to it over 30 years. So, and I would agree with you wholly. Blasting is somewhat of an art, and less of, although there's science and hardness of rock and all those other good stuff, it's definitely a skill that needs to be developed. So that I do agree with you. So in general, so I'm just thinking and making sure the rest of the commission understands when you basically excavate down 40 feet and you're blasting, there's a lot of earth moving going on. And it's just important, and planning board will have their stuff, and I'm not going to suggest anything for the planning board. For us, it's really just what's everything being used for, where is it going, how much of the site is exposed, and the fact that whenever you do your site, you're going to be starting to where it transitions from kind of a fill area to a blast area, and then in talking about the areas that are filled, you've already indicated the loam is going to get removed, but is the overburden going to remain? And what is it, kind of that process? And I think it's really just understanding it to make sure there's no issues with the drainage for the retaining wall, which is right next to the wetland, which is what I mean to say.
Madam Chair, if I could just weigh in for 1 second. I just want to say it verbally. We will have written specifications for the material behind the retaining wall structurally. We have a very specific material for below the drainage field to make sure the infiltration rates are kept. We have a specific spec on the base and the sub base, but below all the pavement, and then certainly underneath all of the buildings. So to sort of echo your point and put a finer point on it, is regardless of how Tyler manages the site in terms of blasting and processing, or if they have to blast and export and then import, the interests of the structure and the infrastructure of the site are maintained through all the specifications. So they are in place. They can't simply blast the rock and then just dump it in a corner. It has to meet certain gradations, of course.
And if I can,
I appreciate that. Go ahead.
and if I can piggyback on that as well, Madam Chair, we also will have on the site, as Phil mentioned, we'll have specifications for the walls and the drainage and the compaction route behind the walls. We'll have a geotech on site that will be doing inspections, making sure everything's compacted in the appropriate lifts, doing the product testing, et cetera, to make sure that the materials, our interests are certainly aligned. We certainly want to make sure that the wetlands are protected. We want to make sure that the retaining walls function for many, many, many years. So we will certainly be recording and making sure that everything's compacted, et cetera, by a third party.
Okay, appreciate that. I mean, those were kind of around the rock and so forth. Those were kind of my big question. The overburden is, well, at some point you're going to have stockpiles, and we're wondering how big those stockpiles would be and how you would, obviously that's part of erosion control. You mentioned that we have a policy about opening up 5 acres. Unfortunately, that's based on some very bad experiences with, people doing construction that don't pay attention to erosion control. So that's where it is. So as far as not to say that we would not, kind of waive some of those area numbers, but we want to have a very, kind of robust erosion control. And because there's so much blasting, when you take down a hill 40 feet, that's a lot. That's a pretty significant change in the topography, and it's just volume, and you got to move it around. So it's making sure that's going to happen as the students thrive. That's all.
Yeah, we have no interest in being your next case study in town. So
yeah, everyone starts off great, and then guess what? By the end of the project, it kind of begins to slide off and so forth. So
yeah.
Let me go around. I've spoken enough. Let me kind of go around with the rest of the commissioners to see if they have any other kind of concerns dealing with the, kind of looking at the logistics and looking at having the entire site open up. So, Travis, anything to add to that or any other concerns?
No, nothing to add.
All right, Jonathan.
Nothing to add.
Okay, and Emily.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, so Leah, kind of next step, or maybe go over what your kind of your report says.
So I don't have a lot to add. Phil covered the vast majority of my notes. We are just waiting on, I know you submitted the that cross section that we took a look at, but we would be waiting on like the peer review response in writing, as well as like whatever phasing narrative off of kind of how we talked about the blasting tonight, and as Sandy touched on, the robust erosion control plan. Other than that, yeah, that's all I have for this evening.
Right. I think I have one question for the applicant is, on a project of this size, we want to work with you as opposed to basically on the special conditions, to make sure that, we're not requesting something that's either not doable or it's sometimes the wording is we can kind of benefit from some feedback on those conditions. And so we're just starting that process of thinking about conditions and starting to put, we have some standard conditions about signage and so forth. We'll have to, that's a discussion because of the retaining walls and slopes along the wetlands. I don't know if we really need to put signs because typically you don't have a 20-foot drop. It's there for people not, we have a lot of occasions where landscapers love just to dump things over retaining walls, those type of things. So it's mainly for those and that's pretty minor. There's small signs just to say, this is a wetland, and we usually only try to do it where we think there's a possibility of those type of activities happening. And so I think that at that point, it's really coming up with, some of those conditions. As far as, we have on occasion requested So we know that the planning board will put a bond on you. The only thing that conservation ever gets involved in is the stabilization. Because we don't, we're not the planning board, so all we really care about is if for some reason, you're halfway through the blasting and everything stops and you walk away. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but it does happen on occasion. Our only concern is that the site is stabilized after that. We don't, we're not gonna make you do anything else. It's about, we just don't want things totally exposed and then not have any recourse if someone walks away from a project. So we usually coordinate any potential bonds with the planning board because we do not want to duplicate anything they have. We just, it's really all around with a slope like that and the elevation changes, it would only be around a stabilization. So that's one of the things that we did discuss among the conservation commissioners. So it's a little bit unusual site that we have here based on the amount of cuts and flow. Do you have any questions for us? And then we will, I'll at this time also open it up for anyone in the public. If you do have any comments or questions on this for tonight, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. But back to the applicant, do you have any questions for us?
We would be happy to work with you on potential conditions, and I think just the other component is speaking internally. I don't foresee any issues with turning our comments formally back to this commission prior to the next meeting, well prior to the next meeting, so that the Graves could review those responses as well.
That would also give us an opportunity to start some preliminary conditions so that it can be discussed at the next meeting. So. Leah, am I missing anything?
I don't think so. I do just want to clarify that I don't believe planning will be holding a bond on this. Planning traditionally holds bonds on subdivisions.
Okay.
So I think would be on our own in that regard, but like you said, it would just be with regards to stabilization and erosion control.
Right, that's it. Okay. All right. Leah, did DEP have any other comments other than the MIPA?
Nope, just the one.
So I'm curious how you're not either having funding or you don't require a state permit for this site.
We don't require, we just don't require any state action permits. They don't consider the order of conditions to be the state permit.
Nope, totally get that. But I was thinking more, I know the blasting's a local fire, but if it gets big enough, it can bump up the fire services and stuff. No.
From the blasting perspective, we will need to obtain a blasting permit from the fire department. They're the rising authority.
Right.
And
but doesn't fall under MIPA threshold. So.
Right, yeah, and the funding one, that's you guys, yeah. And as far as our concern is that I don't have a problem with the EC making that comment. We have no control of that. That's not our jurisdiction. So.
Nope. It's no problem. We're happy to address it wherever it exists. That just happened to be their comment.
To help
to
help comfort you as well, the state of Massachusetts, but the town of Grafton also will require a fire detail on site at all times the blasting is happening. So there'll be a town personnel there.
Okay. And that's fine too. I mean, that's, okay. So having said that, Leo, Jan, anyone from the public has raised their hand?
Nothing from the public.
All right, thank you. So if we can go around once more with the commissioners to see if there's anything else, people have questions or comments or potential conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Travis,
Nope, nothing else from me.
Jonathan,
Nothing from,
all right, and Emily.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, and you've heard enough from me, so I'm all set. So the next question to you is, do you want to continue us to our next hearing?
We would request a continuation to the next hearing.
And that's going to be June 18th. So, do I have a motion?
I'll move to continue the hearing to June 18th for 5 Millennium Drive.
A second.
Second,
A motion, a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Emily,
yes.
Jonathan.
yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. So see you on June 18th. And if you have any questions, please reach out to staff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Have a good one. All right, Leah, what's up next here? Upton Street. Okay, let me go back. All right, 1727 Upton Street. Okay. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom, Jack, upon notice of intent application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for construction of an apartment complex at 17 and 27 Upton Street. And who's here for that?
That's me. Jean Christie, Principal Engineer with Ty and Bond. I'm here tonight with, sorry?
No, go ahead.
Hi.
Please do.
Here tonight with a number of folks from the development team and the design and permitting team. Going to keep it pretty quick, I think, since we don't have our file number yet from DEP and we don't have our peer review comments yet. But I'm hoping by next hearing we're scheduled for, we can have some more in-depth conversations about those two things. In the meantime, last week we did submit some supplementary information based on some of the discussions we had at the last hearing. There were a number of points that I think the commission wanted some additional information on. So we put together a brief response with some additional drawings to walk through tonight. Now, Jan, I don't know if you can pull up the supplementary PDF that we sent last week.
Just a second.
Yep. So I can update the commission. Last week we did attend the planning board meeting. We received a lot of great input from the planning board. There wasn't any real opposition to the project and everybody was supportive of the housing project in town. So that was really great to feel and hear. But that was then continued until June 24th. So we're gonna have more work there with the planning board. So looking at this, the document in front of you, the first piece that we want to talk about was some additional wetlands replication information. Jan, if you can go to the sheet 501, I think it's the first 11 by 17 in that plan, in that group. Keep going all the way down to the plan so we can talk about it. One thing that we wanted to clarify on this was the amount of wetland replication area proposed. Previously, we had considered only one small area of replication in that northwest corner of the project. But upon our discussions, we did decide to increase that to address the permanent impacts from the project, which included clearing for the boardwalk construction, as well as the permanent impacts from the boardwalk construction itself in terms of the piers. So between those two wetland replication areas shown at the top, if you pan over to the right, Jan, you can see that we're proposing a little over 1,000 square feet of replication area with a permanent impact area of the 948 previously. So we think that wetland replication area will consist generally of wetland seed mix, with some additional plantings in, what the cinnamon fern, the pied bush blueberry is indicated above. We're happy to entertain other proposals that the commission may have in terms of what you're planting if you have any ideas, I'm happy to listen to them.
I would just say, look at what the native plants are already in the wetlands and use that as kind of your palette. Obviously not invasive, but.
Right, that's another whole topic. Okay, so I know that we did have staff out there last week to look at, you know, some of the plans specifically. We can take another stab at this plan because I expect that with the peer review coming up, we will be issuing a full new set of drawings to the commission, and we can further detail the, you know, more plans on this plan. But if we're okay with that, you know, the general scheme of the wetland replication proposal at this time, we'll move forward with that. Jan, if you want to go to the next couple of pages in the colorized versions, drawings, the next couple of pages, we wanted to next detail out or, you know, call more attention to the work in the 25-foot, the work in the 100-foot buffer zone, comparing what's happening there today with what's going to look like in the future. So this graphic, if we can zoom out quite a bit, you know, colorized, what is there today? What are the existing impacts to the 25-foot in terms of pavement, gravel, buildings? And you can see in the pink shaded areas, those are development, you know, hardscape materials, buildings, pavement, gravel in that 25-foot no disturb today. And you can see in the top left corner some of the debris and the condition of the wetland and the 25-foot buffer zone. So if you go to the next sheet, this shows, you know, some of that work that we're taking some of that development, turning it back to grass. You know, remember around the perimeter of the building, we do have a pathway, a walking path for residents. But starting on that left-hand side of this, you know, this portion of the project where we had pavement, we are now converting that to grass impervious pavers. So while it's still parking, it is curbed and infiltrating there. You know, looking around to the right-hand side of the project, I think that's where we see the most removal of pavement, up in that, you know, far eastern corner in the northern portion of that, of the L of the building. There's a salt shed there today. That's, you know, obviously coming completely out. It's pretty much right up to the wetland line. So restoring that area with grass and, you know, our storm dust pathway along the back there. And then some of the areas in the top of the page where there was existing gravel, that material storage area, that being restored to at least partially with, you know, vegetation, you know, wetland, you know, buffer zone grass mixes and other plantings to, you know, improve that 25-foot area there. Are there any questions about this? We have a couple, you know, representative photos on the left of, you know, kind of our goals here in terms of the stone dust path, you know, the wetland replication mix and stuff like that. Are there any questions?
I'm all set for right now, and as you go along, I'll reach out to the different commissioners.
Sure. So another topic was construction phasing. We had provided a construction phasing drawing for the last meeting. We don't have to pull it up now, but there was some clarification requested about how much area is going to be disturbed at a single time. You know, our limit of disturbance currently is 4 acres. We don't expect to have to disturb more than that at any time during construction. I think probably when the site is at its, you know, most active in terms of construction, we'll need all of that area for staging, you know, construction trailers, contractor parking, and material laydown areas. So while we're working probably on this site that's shown in this plan, we have material staging on the other side of the property. And the intent is, you know, we're still working out some of the kinks in construction, how that's going to work. We're not obviously going to drive across the boardwalk with construction equipment. It's going to be through the road, but that's something that we're going to be talking with Mass DOT about as well. As we're looking at invasive species removal and what the revegetation looks like, we're proposing this, the, you know, normal wetland seed mix. You know, we believe that there is a seed bank there that's just taken over by Phragmites that will establish, and we're going to hope that it really does come back once those Phragmites are gone and not, you taking over the whole area. But when we need to amend that with something, it'd be the wetland seed mix, in that area. And again, with the restoration of that temporary impacts and invasive species management, we would appreciate any feedback the commission want to provide us to that. Just a few more points to talk about. There was a question, just to reiterate why we need this project. This area was selected, parcels were selected by the town specifically for development of housing, and affordable housing as well. So with our 30 units of affordable housing, which is 25%, which is above what we're required to do, and our 122 total units, we're providing quite a bit of rental housing options in the middle of town. The planning board many years ago rezoned this area or put the overlay on this area. It's a zoning district specifically for this reason. So this has been kind of a long range plan of the town for quite some time. All right, so the next topic was about including soil remediation work as part of this notice of intent. We definitely want to include that work in this project. Fortunately for us, the soil that we're anticipating that needs to be remediated and removed and disposed of properly is kind of in the middle of the page. So it's half in the 100-foot buffer, half outside of the 100-foot buffer. So it's really pretty centralized right at the building. Coming from, kind of centralized to the building and going, small up, shortly outside, and that's not quite the right word, but just outside of the building limits. So there's no new impact.
Adjacent to the building.
Adjacent, thank you. So there's no new impacts associated with that, as we had assumed. If it's a building, we're taking it out, we're taking out some of the soils there to put back pavement, to put back pervious pavers. So there's no new net impacts associated with that work. Our plan is to provide, in the next week or so, the commission with a more detailed explanation of why we need this work, why, how it's going to happen, and then kind of what the next steps are in terms of that process, as it is ongoing in terms of permitting that. And then the last piece was a photometric plan. Jan, you don't need to pull it up because it's really hard to see on here. But we are in works with a photometric plan to, for the entire site. We wanted to show what was proposed at the along the boardwalk. And I don't think I have the graphic for you right here, but they're wall packs mounted to the railings. So the light is shining down and into the boardwalk versus, a pole shining up and out. Really focused on footpath versus, ambient lighting. So the photometric plan that you all have does have some lighting information on it. It's going to be revised as we're working through some layout changes with amenity spaces and addressing peer review comments, of course. So we will have a finalized version of that to you.
Okay.
I think that was very briefly all the pieces I wanted to talk about because we don't have everything in place yet. Is there any questions that I can answer?
Yeah, I'll go around to the commissioners, see if anyone, I think, like this particular graphic is helping us to get to tell a story. And I think maybe even a summary page of, what's out there now, square footages, and, and it doesn't have to be specific, just so that we understand you had the photos of different debris in the wetlands and so forth. And we're not looking for exact numbers, but again, it's just that what's being cleaned up and obviously we know the site. So I'm curious, and this is really just for my own information, there really hasn't been a whole lot of cleanup to date yet, correct?
Correct.
All the photos you're showing is still out there, so if commission members went by it, they would see the condition that it's in now.
Correct.
That hasn't changed, okay. Let me go around to the commissioners to see if anyone else has any other questions, and then we'll check in with Leah, but Travis, any questions?
Similar to what Sandy was saying, it'd be helpful for me to know what the square footage of the no disturb buffer impacts will be. Not necessarily like how much debris will be removed, but what's the actual hardscape no disturb buffer impacts, if that makes sense, compared with the existing conditions. I couldn't find that in the plans, but I'm having trouble getting into Dropbox.
Yeah,
And
we
Leah,
can,
if you've got that, I mean, Leah could send it to me if it's already in there somewhere. But I want to know what the square footage of the no disturb impacts are, current conditions, and then proposed.
Sure.
And also on the no disturb impacts, did I hear correctly that there's not going to be like native seeding? It's just turf grass around the walking path. Is that correct?
Joey, if you're available, do you want to help me with that one? Just, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, sure thing. I'd be happy to speak to that. My name's Joe Jenga. I'm a staff engineer and landscape designer with Ty and Bond. So between the facade of the building and the stone dust path, which you can see looping around the back and sides of the building, that would be seeded with turf grass. There's an opportunity for foundation plantings maybe around the base of the building. But then on the outside of that stone dust pathway, we're placing a permanent wetland protection fence, which would be some kind of wood split rail fence or something to that effect. And on the back side of that fence would be a native seed mix with a variety of plantings within the wetland buffer areas. And we're showing some more ornamental tall shrubs or small trees along the walking path to provide some visual interest and some canopy for residents walking around those areas. There will probably be an opportunity to create nodes of maybe some more landscaped planting beds with some native shrubs and native perennials. We have some benches placed along the pathway, which would be a good opportunity to incorporate some additional plantings beyond just the turf grass between the building and the stone dust path. I hope that helps.
All right. I think that's it for me right now, Sandy.
All right, great.
I'm just trying to get an idea of how we're improving the conditions is all.
Yeah, that's why I haven't been to the site or by the site in a long time. I'm thinking maybe of taking a drive over there because what I remember of it from going by it previously, it's not an attractive site. It's not something that could be in the middle of a wetland. But just a quick questions on the planting. Just curious if there's gonna if those plantings will have any habitat value, especially on the outside of the walkway.
Yeah, that would definitely be one of our goals, is to restore some of the ecological value to that wetland buffer. I was on site last week taking a look at the existing plant palette, and a lot of the trees are great. There's oaks, swamp white oaks, spruces, birches, elms, maples, things of the like. But the ground cover is in very poor condition, very scrubby. So we'd be looking to introduce a variety of native shrubs, native perennials that restore the wetland buffer where possible, and provide some ecological and habitat value or pollinator value as well.
All right, thank you. Jonathan, any questions of kind of this new information or ongoing additional information?
Nope, no other questions.
All right, Emily.
No questions for me, thank you.
Then I will just put it out there. If anyone is in the public and have any questions or comments on this particular project, please raise your hand. We'll be happy to listen to them and address them if we can. And then as we wait for that, I'll go back to the applicant to see if you have any questions for the commission.
I don't have any at this moment. I don't know, John Grant or Brendan, if either of you have any questions.
None for me, Gene.
I think it would be a good idea just, if any one of the commissioners would like to go out and walk the, area with one of your people, Gene, that you might set up a time or date. The site is in pretty poor condition overall, and it was an active DPW site, which means there were front loaders and things like that, pushing dirt and everything else all over the place. Hopefully, our intent here is to create a pretty nicely manicured, a buffer zone and, a brand new sort of edge to the wetlands that's a little bit more creatively planted. Is that right, Gene? With, some native.
Improved, improved based
And
off
that's
the
our-
current
that's our
condition. Yeah.
goal. It's gonna make a great place for residents to walk and enjoy the wetlands. Which I guess right now, because of the fence and everything else, it's really, at quite a distance from them. So maybe if you guys want to set up a time or date, we could put together a little expedition out there with a landscape architect and with Gene to take a look at the sites as they exist right now and to visualize what's gonna happen in the future, if that's possible.
All right, thank you for that offer. For me, it's just really getting to understand this is not just a wooded site. There's a lot of activities for a very long time there. So, Leah, anything that I missed or anything else that you want to bring up at this point?
The only other thing I had was just if we needed to chat at all about the really old order that we found that we'll need to close out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're talking about that on our side, to come up with an approach for that because it is completely unique and unexpected as of a couple of weeks ago. So we're still
Okay.
working on that one, but, thanks for bringing that back to my attention.
Sure.
All right, and Jan, no one from the public?
Nothing from the public.
And as you started off the conversation, Gene, that we don't have a DEP number and that you will be requesting continuance, is that true?
That's correct.
And would that be to June 18th?
June
That's our
18th.
next meeting.
That sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right, so no public comments, no one else has any questions on the commission. Staff is okay to keep on going here. So if I can have a motion to continue the public hearing to June 18th, that would be greatly appreciated.
I'll move to continue the hearing to June 18th.
Second,
Second,
a motion is second, roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
thank you. Travis,
Yes.
Emily,
yes.
I am also a yes. That means the motion carries and we'll see you on June 18th.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night, everyone.
All right.
Thank
too.
you.
All right, Leah, what else do we have?
Thank you.
We have 3 things left, the last 2
Okay.
action items and then a discussion item.
Okay. All right, so I'm just looking at, so we went through the Troop, we went through the 7 Main Street, we did 3840 Adams, so we're starting with 62 Weston Street.
Sure.
Okay. Actually, I need to, I'm still looking at your report, so. Okay, so 62 Weston Street, what is that about, Leah?
So these are the
Okay,
the lots for the Willard Clock Museum, and we've gone back and forth a bit about the conservation restriction. I put a memo in Dropbox from the town administrator, talking about conversations that he's had with those folks, as well as with me, and trying to figure out a way forward. Basically, the applicant was not made fully aware of what the traditional CR through EEA entails. And so they would like to stick with the 30-year format restriction that they proposed previously that, as we discussed, there isn't an ideal way to track that because it's such a long increment of time. But in theory, there is a way to keep it, extending it, in those increments. And then, if we were to be willing to accept that model, kind of as a compromise, they would put up signage along the boundary of the CR, to at least have something in the field, to mark where
Yeah.
that land is, behind those houses. Just trying to read my notes, make sure I covered everything here.
Yeah, well, did everyone have a chance to read that letter?
Yeah, the one from the
So-
administrator, or the
Yep.
town administrator, yeah.
So I just go around and see what people's opinions on it. Travis, you happen to be talking, so you got the
Yeah,
floor.
I don't have any opinions. Other than it seems okay. I mean, if Leah and the TA are okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Jonathan,
I echo what Travis just said. If it's gone
Okay,
through the
and-
ringer and this is the best, then great.
and Emily.
Same as the other two.
Yeah. I'm pretty much same boat. If there's a mechanism that we can continue it, it puts the onus on the town, it's just the town taking that responsibility. I'm okay with that as far as, kind of a compromise and just, I do understand how going through the state process is it's time consuming and it's a burden to do that. So I don't have any issue with that. Leah, do we need anything else other than that, or do we need to do a motion, or what would Linda?
Yeah, I would like to formalize it as like I guess you could count it as a minor change, because I would like to change the wording of our condition that, previously said they would go out and get a CR, blah, blah, blah. I would like to change it to, due to the finding above, the restriction shall be held for 30 years and from then on renewed, via a commission vote in 20-year increments.
Okay. So I don't have an issue with that, and so basically what we're talking about is to have a motion to approve a minor change, and that's the actual condition of outlining what the conservation restriction is. And so if we have a motion, we can vote on it, and then Lee, you can kind of close the loop, correct?
Correct. Then we would just be waiting on them. We're finalizing the draft anyway to try to get the body of the document itself to match what would be in a CR through EEA.
Yep.
So we're still working on the drafts there, and it would come back to you guys when we have it solidified. But this motion would just be the vehicle to allow them to pursue that.
Correct, because it changes the condition that allows this process. Okay.
Right.
All right. So do I have a motion for a minor change for 62 Western Street regarding the to change the format of the conservation restriction?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the minor change and the changes to the conservation restriction as discussed by the agent.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a very tired yes. So that motion carries. All right. The last one is the Highfield replication.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's left online, but I can talk about it a little bit. So we had given them an enforcement order to formally document that the subdivision was deficient in replication areas. They proposed basically converting the old manure pit to wetlands. It needed to be hydrologically connected to the existing wetlands in order for it to count as BVW. So they have developed that plan. Jan, if you can pull it up when you have a sec. It was reviewed by Art. Art's only outstanding comment is that he defers to us on the no disturb, which is the main thing we do need to talk about. So they are asking for a waiver from having to do a full 25-foot no disturb around the entirety of the pit, because part of it is an existing farm access road. So to compensate for the area where they would like to keep that road, they bulked up plantings in a wider area instead.
Okay.
I would be fine with that approach. They did show on the plans where they want to install no disturb signage, and for the most part it surrounds, or how they showed it, it just follows the 25-foot line, but I would make the correction that in the let's see, northwest-ish, I would say bump those signs out to be out around the wider planting area.
Oh, I gotcha. Yep.
Because right now they show it cutting through at the 25-foot line. So I guess we would be taking a vote if you are willing to grant the waiver from the full 25-foot. And then we would be voting to approve the plan. And I have conditions to put on it. One, that they relocate that no disturb signage as I just discussed. Two, that they follow all the planting notes on the plan. Three, the commission reserves the right to require additional plantings to achieve, and I left it blank, % successful growth. Now, when it's a wetland replication area, we have that at 75%. This is no disturb planting. So I didn't know if you still wanted it to be the 75 or if it should be a different number.
Good question. I mean, I look at it in that perspective of whenever you go out and do stormwater stuff and you look at condition of planting and so forth, and you go by fair, good, and you know, those numbers, they're associated with 50%, 75%, I think 25% is 4. And let me tell you, there's a huge difference between like 50% and 75%. 50% is sparse. So if they're looking to plant that number of plants, you know, typically they have a year warranty anyways. I would think 75% of the plants indicated on there is reasonable. If other people have different opinions, you know, lines with, you know, a lot of the planting and so forth.
And then the only other one I had is that we should put some kind of timeline on it so that it isn't just left open endlessly.
You know, it's getting into June and summer. Is it for the next growing season? We're out of the spring growing season almost, right?
Yeah, just about.
So I would think that it would have to be done by, I don't know. I'm thinking the fall growing season, the end of that, because you don't want them planting in July or August. That's just my take on it. So does anyone else have any comments on this? Or the timing? Leo, were you thinking of a different timing?
No, I think that's good. The initial planting shall be in the fall growing season. I guess I would just go back to the one where we're requiring 75% successful growth. Do we want to give that the standard 2 growing seasons to achieve that?
I would stick with the standard and see if, I mean, that's what we typically do, and that means that they have to finish this in a year, because you have 2 growing seasons a year.
Right. Okay.
So I'll quickly go around. Does anyone have any other questions about this? I mean, this has been hanging out for a while. Jonathan?
Did they have to? Can we grant the waiver and do all these things if they're not online to acknowledge any of the things that we just discussed, like the 75% or any of the other items? Or like, is that a continuance because of that, because they're not here? Or can we make that determination without them here and vote and then move forward? Usually they're here, so.
Good question. What does this fall under? This falls under,
This is them responding to an enforcement order, so it's an
Okay,
action
so we
item,
can-
it's not a public hearing, but I mean, it does sort of play into how we talked earlier about that pink area of disturbance, and it's like if they're looking at the subdivision as a whole and they're trying to figure out, impacts and replication math, that pink area has not previously been accounted for unless they're just going to restore the pink area in its current
Right.
place.
which
So,
is what I would think they would do, but don't know.
Did they know this was on the agenda?
yeah, they scrambled at the last minute to get it to me in time.
And then left
What?
before we did it? Interesting.
There is one attendee in the, that's not the person, is it?
No,
Okay.
Actually, Jonathan, I mean, that's a really good question. We don't wanna, I guess if we approve it, they can just, I mean, so this is an enforcement order. So, we can change our own enforcement order, right? It would be just another vote.
like, what do you
Or is
mean
it- or
change
is it-
it?
Well, say like if we come in and we say 75% and they go, no, we think that's unreasonable or something.
I guess
Yeah.
I would probably just bring them back with like a new plan to look at that new plan, and then we would be accepting that one in the place of this one. At this point, it's no longer wording on the actual enforcement order. That went out months ago. This is just
Okay.
us. So the enforcement order left them with, you need to come up with a plan to address your deficiencies. So this is them saying, here's my
With the
plan.
plan. And we're making 2 recommendations. Or
Yeah.
2 conditions, whatever, okay. Good question, but I think we can move forward with this.
Okay, yeah, sounds fair.
Travis, any kind of comment or opinion on that either?
Oh, I have no opinion. I'm recusing myself.
Oh, that's right. Someday I'll remember where you live. Emily,
No additional questions, thank you.
so, so Leah, so we can just, make a motion to accept, this plan as requested, except for with the 2 revisions that we suggest, or 2 conditions we suggested.
So I had 4 conditions, so it would be approving
Okay.
the plan with the 4 conditions, but also you need to grant a waiver from them protecting or reestablishing the 25-foot in that one area in the northeast because of the road.
Oh, okay. All right, so why don't we take that on first? So can I have a motion to grant the waiver for work within the no disturb zone on the northeast corner of this, we'll call it replication area?
I'll make a motion to grant the waiver as discussed for the Highfields replication.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second, so we'll call a vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
and Travis, can you just confirm that you're recusing yourself?
Confirmed, recusing myself.
Thank you. I am also a yes. The motion carries. So the waiver has been granted. Next step is it would be accept this plan, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And, with the 4 conditions, can you read those conditions? Make our lives easier?
Yeah, the no disturb signage will be relocated outside of the wider planting area in the northwest of the site. Planting notes on the plan shall be adhered to. The commission reserves the right to require additional plantings to achieve 75% successful growth within 2 growing seasons. And the initial planting shall occur in this upcoming fall growing season.
Fabulous. We have the conditions. Can someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the plan with the conditions that Leah just noted for the Highfields replication enforcement order.
Thank you. Second?
Second,
The motion is second. Roll call vote. Jonathan?
Yes.
Emily?
yes.
And Travis, can you confirm again that you are recusing yourself?
Yep, I'm recusing myself.
And it's also yes, the motion carries. And Travis, I'm gonna look up the correct Robert's Rule procedures when someone recuses themselves so that I don't have to keep asking you questions. So. All right, Leah.
Name, it's got to be Travis Highfields recusing Mast or something like that.
Anything else, Leah, at this point?
Yes, 25 East Street has a dam on the property. The property owner is being required to remove trees on the actual spillway of the dam by dam safety. They're proposing to cut them down and lift them out with a crane, but leave the stumps in place. I did ask them if dam safety would be okay with stumps being left in place. I did not get an answer on that. But I wanted to know, regardless, how does the commission feel this should be handled? I'm thinking RDA because it doesn't exactly fit in our like hazardous tree policy. Because it's right on the spillway itself. But this is a unique one, so I wanted to ask you guys.
So I would say that, but before we go any further, what is the distance that I have to recuse myself? I live on East Street.
I mean, so we notify abutters within 300
Okay.
feet.
Then I'm, it's probably a little bit further than that. I'm at 74. So it's not right here. So it's, I do walk by this all the time when I go for a walk, but I think it's more than 300 feet.
I think when we had the hearing for him to redo his driveway, you were fine, but let me measure in the background.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's okay, to be honest. I just, you know, and they're finally putting up the guardrail on it. Yeah.
Sandy. So it says 0.4 miles from 74 East Street to 25 East Street via Google Maps. Walking down the
So more
street.
than that. I know I walk down there all the time, because I walk down to the cemetery, take walks. I guess I don't really think about how far it is, so.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, that's good. All right, having said that, I think an RDA is, you know, is appropriate. This is in no way associated with the replacement of the culvert, is it?
The driveway crossing thing?
Yeah,
No.
okay. Which I was just, you know, my only thought was, if it was, then you could somehow, that order of conditions is so outstanding, so we haven't finished work on it yet.
Right.
But other than that, I think an RDA is appropriate. And as far as leaving the stumps, I don't know enough about, I just don't know enough about this type of spillway, and especially with dam safety folks, I'd really want them to kind of let us know, because stumps are organic and they grow right away. So I just don't know if that's okay or not. to be quite honest.
Okay.
But you reached out to dam safety and they just,
I
didn't
reached
get
out
back
to
to
the owner. I asked the owner if
okay,
they could coordinate with dam safety and see if that would be acceptable to them.
Okay.
But just to further clarify, so because the trees are on the actual spillway itself, which potentially is like land underwater and whatever, we don't feel like there's any way for this to fall under our like hazardous tree policy. I just want to clarify that point.
yeah. If it was just on the, on the bank of the lake, I'd have a different opinion, but if dam safety is involved and this is on a spillway, we shouldn't be making that judgment call.
Yep.
My opinion.
Can I ask if the trees have been a problem since 2013?
So the only thing we were provided with were a couple of pages from site assessment from 2013. With highlights on it about that Fuss and O'Neill found trees on the spillway and recommended that they come out. That document's from 2013 and it's from Fuss and O'Neill. The conversation I had with the owner was that dam safety is requiring them to come out. So I don't know if there's additional correspondence. I don't know if dam safety has made it more urgent than something that's been lingering from 2013. All I have is this sketch and a couple pages with highlights on it.
Thank you.
Did you have check their dam safety website?
No.
I don't know what's on it. I don't know. They have some information online, but it's not. I have never really found a lot. I'm wondering if that's an easy look. But totally get that you don't want large trees or trees period on a spillway. They don't belong there. And so have they taken the trees out or they're looking to take the trees out?
No, they're looking to take them out and they were hoping to get a quick approval from me, but I wanted to ask you guys.
My only question is when you say cut the trees down, I don't know what it means as far as you have to take the stump out. To what your question was, I don't know. I would not for us to answer that question.
Okay.
If it's sitting on a spillway.
But regardless, stump in or out, because of its proximity to resource areas, it needs to be an RDA.
Yeah, that should be a fairly straightforward one, but
okay,
I'd rather,
understood.
Yeah.
The only other thing I have is to give a plug to our trail maps that Jan has online. She's been cranking them out. They're on our webpage and our Facebook page, and properties where we have a kiosk, we've stuck it in the kiosk. She's made QR codes so folks can pull it up on their phone when they're out there. And we're working our way through blazing them as well.
Oh, cool. Oh, very cool.
I've been getting the updates, the automatic updates when you guys post new ones. That's great.
Good.
Keep it up.
So everyone should go for a hike.
Not a bad idea. All right. Anything else?
That's all I got.
All right. It's been a long ass day. I was online doing work at 6:30 this morning. It's now much later than that. So I'm done.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
You got it. We got a motion in a
Jonathan beat me.
second. Roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
I am also an enthusiastic yes.